as obviously as we've all been kind of enduring with, COVID and quarantine and stuff like that, a lot of this year was really up in the air. At first, Mountain West kind of, canceled essentially their season, and then they brought it back. So now with the season coming up, not a whole lot of practice time. So what are some disadvantages that the Dogs may face when the season opens?
It's going to be interesting to see what really hits them. They have had some disadvantages. They've had less practice time than really any other program in the country. From the time COVID hit until the Mountain West said, we're bringing football back this fall, none of those student athletes were on campus at all, not in the weight room, not working out, not out on the turf in the stadium. And most of the other programs had that advantage at some point. But, you think about Fresno State's history, whether it was Jim Sweeney or Pat Hill or now Kalen DeBoer following in Jeff Tedford's footsteps, there's always been this idea that you're not going to have all the luxuries that everybody else has. You're not the guy who's in the catbird seat. You're that hungry junkyard dog trying to claw your way there. And I think this is an opportunity to really feed into that mentality and say, whether or not other teams have advantages, we're going to find the advantages that we have. And if that's just a desire, a hunger, because we were without this game we love for so long that now we really appreciate it, whatever it is, I think this is the kind of coaching staff that's going to find those things. And I think you're going to see a team that plays with a lot of passion and a lot of desire. And I think it's going to be a really successful year. I really do.
It's good. Yeah. Now it's going to be an 8-game season, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Lord willing, games could be canceled. I mean, there was the first week of the season, New Mexico and Colorado State were expecting to play in Fort Collins. The New Mexico governor said, Lobos, you can't go. So, something like that could happen any week to any one of these teams. And I think that's going to create a new flavor to the season that we've never seen before. Because football's always unpredictable. That's what we love about sports. You never know exactly what's going to happen. I think this year is going to put that times 10 with all the other unpredictable factors that are a part of the mix.
Yeah, it's crazy times. I mean, hopefully it'll be in a sense a clean year for Fresno State in the health department, specifically with this whole COVID thing. And it's crazy, like watching the 49ers, in the NFL. I mean, there's just guys dropping like flies, and other teams too. Like just the Niners are the first team that pop in my head, but hopefully that's not going to happen to a lot of these college programs. And it doesn't seem like it has been for like the SEC, who's already started, but hopefully it's not going to happen with the Mountain West, and hopefully for the Fresno State Bulldogs, it'll be a clean year.
Especially since last year was so affected by injuries. I think if their offensive line had been even remotely healthy last year, that's a bowl team. So with what they went through last year, I think it's that much more crucial and important to have an injury-free year and have some stability.
Yeah, I mean, last year they had a chance to beat Minnesota, and I mean, Minnesota went on to be undefeated. I think they went like 9-0, 10-0 before they lost their first game. And I know Cody and I went to that game, and it was just like they were so close. And then you keep seeing Minnesota win, and you're like, man, we could have been that first team to beat them. That was frustrating. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that because it's only going to make me mad. So how does this? I mean, we kind of already have heard that Fresno State has had already cut some of their sports, which is really sad. I mean, I think what was it, men's lacrosse, men's tennis, and then the wrestling program, which we just got back. That was kind of heartbreaking. I mean, are there, with this university, are there going to be more cuts with these sports because of this? Or do you think maybe there's going to be an upswing with these sports and everything else is going to kind of stay?
Well, it's just such a challenging landscape. And my heart goes out to those student athletes. They're young men that were so elated when Fresno State brought back wrestling. And that opened up a whole new dream for a lot of wrestlers in the Valley. And how powerful high school wrestling is in the Valley. So that's really tough. And I know it was really hard for Dr. Castro. That was one that he felt personally, and it was a very difficult decision. Women's lacrosse was a sport that, we never had in the Valley at any level until Fresno State decided to add it a while back. The program never really got traction, and now it was a program without a conference. So I think as hard as it is for the young ladies in that program, that really did make sense to drop that at this point. And men's tennis, that's tough. These guys just won a championship the last time they had a chance to in 2019. And that's a situation where college tennis and in the Mountain West exclusively, most every scholarship athlete is someone from outside the United States who's coming to this country for opportunity. So those are, again, some dreams that have been derailed and changed. So I think that's the biggest story, is it affects all those lives. And Fresno State is giving them all the opportunity to stay on campus and maintain their scholarships. But when you're a competitor, you want to compete in that sport. So I would expect a lot of them to transfer if they have opportunities to compete elsewhere. And as far as, long term, the NCAA has a minimum. You have to have at least 16 sports. You have to have at least 6 men's sports. And right now, Fresno State is at the bare minimum on the men's side with 6 sports. And that includes track and cross country, who don't even have scholarships right now. So you won't see another men's program cut. And it would be very difficult to, reduce opportunities for female student athletes given the Title IX history. So I think it'll stay where it is for a while. And, maybe in the future, if finances improve, if people are filling stadiums, if they're allowed to again, and people really support the school, you could see sports added in the future. And there are some that I think would be smart to add. But right now, I think it's a real important and crucial time in Fresno State's history where they're going to really have to galvanize the Valley the way it's been done in the past, and bring people from all backgrounds and all priorities together behind that unifying force of Fresno State athletics. And I think it's doable.
It definitely is. I mean, we've seen a lot of kids from the Central Valley. I mean, Kendall Milton comes to mind, who's running back for Georgia, who's been their third running back, and he's been running really well. I mean, imagine if Fresno State can keep these kids here, especially with what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of talent that's going up in the Valley, especially in the sports. So I think it's very doable.
And the Fresno State football team is loaded with a lot of those guys. And Jeff Tedford really did a good job of re-emphasizing the Valley in recruiting. Kalen DeBoer understands that. And you're going to see guys from all kinds of Valley high schools making plays. I mean, Jalen Cropper really burst onto the scene last year. Speaking of Kendall Milton, that's one of his best friends. Yeah. Aaron Mosby's going to be making plays in the linebacking position. I could go through the list on both sides of the ball. You have a lot of Valley talent. And I think if you can continue that, if those guys have good experiences, and you look at the recruiting class that's just been signed, another big contingent of Valley kids, or at least that have committed, I think that really is the key. That's how Pat Hill did it. That's how Pat Hill got Fresno State in the top 10 in the country and was selling out Bulldog Stadium on a weekly basis. And, I think that's the way you have to do it. You can't do what everybody else does. If you're trying to recruit nationally from Fresno, you're going to waste a whole lot of money, and you're going to have people who aren't as invested in that Bulldog mentality as kids who grow up around it and dream about being Bulldogs. So I think they're really on a positive trajectory right now. And I think people are going to be very impressed by Kalen DeBoer, the program he runs, and the consistency that he lives his life with.